Is self-regulation going to be enough for the supplement industry to get over its woes? So this past week in kind of that vitamins, minerals, and supplements category, unfortunately, was a pretty challenging week. Just a lot of news that came out that painted that industry in a picture that was not the best. Been around the block long enough, over a decade now in the industry, to know that when stories start to get picked up in mass media, it's usually a negative thing. For some reason, major media outlets and things do not cover this multi-billion-dollar industry. It's just one of those things where if there is some talk about it, it's always in a negative sense. And to be completely honest, I mean, it kind of upsets me because I have a lot of love, passion for this business community. I spend a ton of my time in this business community, regardless if I've varied some of my consumer packaged goods categories. I still do a lot of business in this world. So my channel is surrounding the advancement of the business communities that I love and the ones that I work within. And because of that, I believe it's kind of my duty to share insights and share knowledge that maybe can even, get to this aspiration level of influencing major media and some of the other larger CPG categories to look at the vitamins, minerals, and supplements category as one that is a shining star, something that you need to pay attention to because they have this extremely high growth, and not only have this growth, but they have everything buttoned up. So I want to take this video and kind of talk about a subject that I don't necessarily talk a lot about. This is just the subject matter surrounding like the regulatory state of the supplement industry. One of the key things that I think is important to mention, because a lot of consumers just kind of believe that the supplement industry is not regulated. The supplement industry, like all other industries, is regulated. There's a variety of government agencies that affect the supplement industry through the whole kind of supply chain up through the commercialization of products. Mainly the ones that you hear the most about is the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, and the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. The FDA usually handles most of the inputs up to the finished goods side of things. FTC is more geared around like marketing claims and the outward communications that brands have with commercialization cycle. But as last week showed, things seem to slip through the cracks regardless of this regulation. And this is where, proper self-regulation of an industry, of this industry, will in effect be able to fill the gaps where some of these government agencies are not able to fill. And if you think kind of a parallel to just the supplement industry in general, like nutritional supplements are there to supplement your diet, kind of fill in the gaps from the food that you're eating. And to me, this is where the onus is on the industry. When things slip through the cracks, self-regulation, the industry should be there to uphold the standards, the trust that the business community and the consumers expect. Because if we look at just the regulatory body, the main one that you hear mostly about with the FDA has come out, especially like the last FDA commissioner that just kind of left. He made a mention about just how fast the industry is growing, how big it's grown, just the number of competitors and suppliers and just tons of different inputs and outputs in the industry, and that they've not had the funding and the availability of resources to match that growth. So the FDA has, done their best, send, warning letters in the sense of like good manufacturing violations or GMP. They've noted when ingredients don't meet NDI requirements, but they can't reach everything. And I think a lot of people that maybe are hyper-focused on one industry or maybe are a rabid consumer of a certain industry, you kind of get blinders and don't think about just broader sense. Like all government agencies, regardless if it's state, local, federal, like they never 100% catch everything. They don't fill all the gaps. It's just not something that's possible. When that's not possible and there's a lack of resources available, lack of enforcement and just inability to catch everything, and the cat's away, the mice will play type of scenario that, again, just happens all around the world, not necessarily in the supplement industry. So with all this extra tension and the FDA coming out and talking about needing some working groups and create some more regulations and things around the industry, you started to get the snowball effect with some in the industry that have been kind of rooting on this heightened regulatory environment. And I don't want to get in the political spectrum of this conversation, but I don't fully get around that idea of any type of like heightened regulatory or the government stepping in, because I don't necessarily trust that it's going to get done right. Not only done right, but have the right stakeholders at the table that understand the current environment, understand the future environment, understand just what's happening in the industry as a whole, from kind of all sides of it. So because of that, I just really can't wrap my head around the idea of wanting to have a heightened regulatory state. And I'll say from what I've noticed and what the conversations that I've been involved in at different shows and online, it seems like the people that are most excited or most wanting some of this heightened regulatory environment is coming from some of the legacy or long-standing brands in the industry that are now struggling to keep relevancy, are struggling to keep alive, and they believe that this heightened regulatory environment will kind of weed out a lot of the bad actors, a lot of the smaller, long tail of the industry where they're kind of losing a lot of small market shares too. And I honestly just don't see it that way. And this is maybe just because of just the way that I approach business, the way I approach life. As the game changes and the rules change, you play the game differently. So I don't believe, especially smart entrepreneurs that are winning in today's dynamic, changing, ultra competitive environment, are going to be ill-equipped to not handle change that would happen in this area. So I wouldn't, if I'm one of these brands that are thinking, great, this is going to be our opportunity to win, I just wouldn't be putting my eggs in that basket in this scenario. So where does this leave us? I think it goes back to, self-regulation, advocacy, and letting the market define its needs through dollars spent. And I think you're already kind of seeing some of that already happening. I don't think that state of the industry is worse off than a decade or 2 decades ago. I think there's been consumer movements, there's been brand side movements that have improved the industry. One of them being kind of the clean label movement, transparent label movement. You have a lot more understanding of what's in the products that you're buying. Consumers are now demanding that more and more in products, so it's kind of creating this information sharing. You also have kind of third-party testing that's getting done on finished goods and some through the supply chain with some manufacturers that are using that as a differentiation to their business. You see consumers putting more value in that, and because they're putting more value in that, that gives a market indicator for brands and other stakeholders. And this is all around the idea of trying to make sure you keep consumer safety in the forefront of the industry. I think you also need to look at just retailers vetting products in general. For the longest time, retailers, especially physical retailers, were the gatekeepers to the industry. So there was responsibility to the industry also to make sure that they're doing their checks and balances when products are hitting their shelves, because that's where the sales were going. Now, not so much on the physical side. You have Amazon being a big player, having the ability to start a listing on Amazon very quickly, maybe get around some of the ingredients and things. I'm not saying that Amazon is not covering the regulatory piece of the industry. They do have a ton of banned ingredients. They constantly have crawlers, algorithms, and things that are looking to pick up some bad players. They just have a lot of listings, and because they have a lot of listings, again, things just fall through the cracks. So, retailers need to continue to do their best to be a gatekeeper, help the ecosystem. Next one is kind of one that I don't see a lot of, especially on the side that I work on, more on the brand side. You don't see a lot of collaboration that happens. You don't see a lot of discussion that is long-term thinking. You see a lot of just short-term competition type of, we don't want to share our secret sauce or whatever. We don't want to share a lot of our information because, that's our competitive advantage, or they're just so scared about competition that they just don't want to give up any information that could be potentially used against them in the competitive landscape. And I think need to get out of that mindset, get into this mindset that what's good for the industry is good for all of us that work in the industry, in this growing industry, and more conversation, more collaboration, more thought leaders working on problems, creating solutions, suggesting these solutions to the people that are making these differences in regulations. This is something that is very common in other industries, but for some reason, like trade associations and things are not as common in the sports nutrition and nutritional supplement space. Most of that is because of the shooting star aspect of brands. You have short life cycles of brands, short life cycles of products, so people are really not as concerned about the long-term effects of the industry. It's kind of get in and get out. So creating an environment where that changes, where that's different, can be extremely fruitful. And then finally, like, I'm not litigious in a sense. Like, I'm not one of those people where I think you go out and just sue a bunch of people because of unfair competition. I understand the value in the market for that. I understand the reasoning that people do that. I respect the people that do that. But to me, I think it comes down to, having a conversation with somebody first and foremost, before you get to that level of suing somebody or bringing something up in court. If somebody's doing something safe, illegal, just maliciously, has some intent that's hurting the overall industry, call that person out privately, and make sure they change, make sure they understand, what is the elevated next step. If they don't change, and if they don't change, make sure that you can stay true to whatever that elevated next step is, which is more than likely going to be a lawsuit or similar. So in summary, those are just, to me, some of the things that we do better at, things that as a whole all kind of keep in the front of our mind to make sure that we are communicating to market on some of these things, putting value in our own business in some of these things, making sure that we are thinking more utilitarian, thinking more big picture, macro-wise for the industry's good over what's good for ourselves. Because supplements are now mainstream, and because supplements, sports nutrition, all these different things are mainstream, you should, at your core, have a heightened sense of responsibility to uphold and continue to, push best practices and uphold standards that are going to continue this growth of this industry, because we all benefit from this industry's growth. We all want to benefit more from it in the future, but if we aren't taking care of the industry today, how do we believe that it's going to be as fruitful for us in the future? So I know this topic is one that's not discussed all that much on my channel. Would love some conversation on this one. Make sure you guys comment below on this video. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to help support me, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button on this video. If this is the first time you've been introduced to my videos, would love for you guys to be a part of my community by subscribing to my channel. I upload several videos just like this weekly. And if you guys want to connect further outside of this platform, I do include all of my social media links down below. I just want to thank you guys again for your time. Hopefully I gave you some value in return, and we'll see you guys on the next video.